I still can't believe it's been 10 years. It feels like a lifetime ago, yet the pain is still fresh, like it all happened yesterday. My name is Noah, and my life completely fell apart because of a lie told by my own brother Adam. He was 24, I was 26, and our family was close, or at least I thought we were. But one night at a family gathering, everything changed. We were at my parents' house, celebrating my sister Maya's graduation. It was a typical family party, everyone laughing, drinking, and reminiscing about old times. I had no idea that night would be the turning point of my life. After dinner, Adam pulled me aside, looking serious. I thought he wanted to talk about work or something important, but what he said shook me to my core. He accused me of sexually assaulting his friend Olivia. I remember the blood draining from my face. My mind raced, trying to process what he was saying. I couldn't even form words for a moment. Wait, what? I finally stammered, thinking this must be some kind of horrible misunderstanding. But Adam didn't waver. He claimed he had seen the whole thing, that Olivia had confided in him afterward, telling him that I had assaulted her. I was stunned, horrified. I barely knew Olivia. We had exchanged maybe a few sentences throughout the evening, nothing more. But Adam insisted, painting a vivid picture of something that never happened. My parents overheard the conversation and rushed over. Before I could even defend myself, they believed him. They didn't ask for my side of the story. They didn't hesitate to turn against me. The next few days were a blur. Accusations flew. My parents, normally calm and rational people, were in complete hysteria. They were convinced I was guilty, and nothing I said could change their minds. Olivia was silent throughout the whole ordeal, her lack of denial only fueling Adam's claims. The police were called, and I had to endure the humiliation of being questioned for a crime I didn't commit. The whole experience was surreal. I thought for sure there would be a way to clear my name, but with no evidence and Olivia staying out of the conflict, the case never went anywhere. Still, the damage was done. My family disowned me. My parents told me I was a danger to them, to the family. They didn't care that there was no evidence. In their minds, Adam's word was enough. They packed up my belongings, told me to leave, and that was that. Just like that, I lost everything. My family, my support system, my entire world. I had no choice but to leave. I moved to a new city, took whatever job I could find, and started over. But no matter how far I ran, the weight of what had happened followed me. For 10 years, I lived with the knowledge that my own brother had destroyed my life. For 10 years, I missed birthdays, weddings, funerals, every significant moment in my family's life. I wasn't invited, and I didn't dare try to reconnect. It was like I had ceased to exist to them. I tried to build a new life. I found work, made a few friends, and even dated again. But the wound never fully healed. Every Christmas, every birthday, I wondered if my family ever thought about me. Did they ever regret their decision? Did they ever doubt Adam's story? I would never know because they never reached out. I started therapy a few years after the incident. The emotional toll of being cut off from my family, combined with the trauma of being falsely accused, was too much to bear alone. Therapy helped to an extent, but no amount of counseling could fix the fact that I had lost my entire family over a lie. A few months ago, out of nowhere, I got a message from Adam. My heart pounded in my chest when I saw his name flash across my phone screen. I hadn't heard from him in 10 years. Part of me wanted to delete the message without reading it, but curiosity got the better of me. The message was long. In it, Adam confessed that he had lied. He admitted that the sexual assault never happened. He said that back then, he had been jealous of me. Jealous of my career, my popularity within the family, and the attention I received. In his twisted logic, he thought accusing me of something so heinous would bring me down a notch. And it worked. He succeeded in ruining my life. Adam went on to say that the guilt had been eating away at him for years and that he wanted to make amends. He said he had changed, that he was in therapy, and that he wanted to fix things between us. I stared at my phone in disbelief. The truth had finally come out. But instead of relief, I felt nothing. Or worse, I felt worse. For 10 years, I had lived with the weight of this lie. I had been disowned, cut off from my family, and forced to rebuild my life from scratch. And now Adam wanted to fix things with an apology? How could I ever forgive him for what he did? After reading the message, I didn't respond. I couldn't. The words felt hollow, meaningless. How was I supposed to move forward after everything that had happened? How could I ever trust him again? Then, my parents reached out. For the first time in 10 years, I heard from them. They apologized for believing Adam's lie. They said they were sorry for abandoning me, that they had acted out of fear and shock, and now they wanted to make things right. But how? How could they make up for 10 years of silence, of betrayal? How could they expect me to reconcile with the very people who had thrown me away so easily? I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to forgive them, to move forward. After all, they were my family. I missed them. But another part of me was angry, furious even. How could they believe something so terrible about me without even giving me the benefit of the doubt? How could they cast me aside without a second thought? I had no answers, just a mess of emotions and a decade of pain to sort through. And that's where I was stuck, caught between wanting my family back and knowing I might never be able to trust them again. After receiving the messages from Adam and my parents, I spent days in a fog, unable to process everything at once. I had always imagined what it would be like if the truth ever came out, but now that it had, I didn't feel the sense of justice or closure I thought I would. In fact, I felt more lost than ever. I didn't respond to Adam right away. I couldn't bring myself to face him. The anger I had buried for 10 years came rushing back like a tidal wave. How could I forgive him for destroying my life out of jealousy? How do you even begin to forgive someone who betrayed you in such a horrible way? A few weeks passed before my parents tried calling me. At first, I let the calls go to voicemail. I wasn't ready to hear their voices, but eventually, after days of them calling and leaving apologetic messages, I answered. It was my mom on the other end of the line. Her voice cracked with emotion as soon as I said hello. "Noah, we are so sorry," she began. "We should have believed you. We acted out of fear. We were wrong, and we regret it every single day." I stayed silent, letting her words hang in the air. I didn't know what to say. Could I forgive them just because they finally knew the truth? Could I ever trust them again? She continued. "We miss you so much. Please, can we just talk face to face? We want to try and make things right." The desperation in her voice was palpable, but I was still guarded. My parents had cast me aside so easily all those years ago. What if this was just another way for them to ease their own guilt, without truly understanding the pain they had caused? My dad got on the phone next. His voice was more steady, but I could tell he was holding back emotion too. "Son, we made a terrible mistake. We acted on what Adam told us without giving you a chance, and for that, we are deeply sorry. I know we can't take back what happened, but we want to try to fix things, if you'll let us." Hearing my father apologize was both cathartic and infuriating. This was the man who had been my role model, the one I looked up to, and yet, when I needed him most, he had turned his back on me without a second thought. How could I trust anything he said now? After a long silence, I finally spoke. "You abandoned me," I said quietly. "You didn't even give me a chance to explain. You just believed him. And now, 10 years later, you want to make things right with a few apologies? Do you even understand what you've done?" My voice shook, but I kept going. I lost everything. I was cut off from my family, my support system, my entire life. I had to start over from scratch. You all continued on with your lives while I was left to pick up the pieces. Do you know what that feels like? The line went quiet. I could hear my mom softly crying in the background. My dad sighed heavily, sounding defeated. "Noah, we know we hurt you deeply. We were wrong, and we don't expect you to forgive us right away. But we want to try. We love you, and we want you back in our lives." Love. That word felt so hollow now. For 10 years, I had lived without it, without them. And now they wanted to bring me back into the fold as if nothing had happened? "I don't know if I can," I whispered, more to myself than to them. "I don't know if I can just forget everything." "We don't expect you to forget," my dad said. but maybe we can try to move forward, one step at a time. I agreed to meet with them in person, but under one condition, I would not see Adam. I wasn't ready for that. The thought of facing him, of hearing his voice, made my stomach turn. My parents accepted my terms, and we set a date to meet at a cafe in a town between where I lived and where they were. The day of the meeting, I felt anxious. My mind was racing with questions. What would they say? Would their apologies feel genuine, or would it just be an attempt to ease their guilt? Would I even be able to look them in the eyes after everything they had done? When I arrived at the cafe, I saw them sitting at a table by the window. My mom looked older than I remembered, her face lined with worry. My dad was still the same stoic figure I had grown up with, but even he seemed smaller, like the weight of the years had finally caught up to him. As soon as I approached the table, my mom stood up and wrapped her arms around me, crying. I froze for a moment before awkwardly patting her back. It felt strange, like hugging a stranger. My dad stood up next, extending his hand, but I just nodded and sat down. I wasn't ready for anything more than that. For the first few minutes, we sat in awkward silence. My mom wiped her tears, trying to compose herself, while my dad stared at the table, unsure of how to begin. Finally, my mom spoke. "We've missed you so much," she said, her voice trembling. "Every day we've thought about you, and every day we've regretted the choices we made." I nodded but said nothing. I wanted to hear more. I needed to hear them acknowledge the full extent of what they had done. "We were scared," my dad added. "When Adam made those accusations, we were shocked. We didn't know what to do, and we acted quickly, without thinking. We realize now that we should have given you a chance to explain. We should have trusted you." I felt a lump forming in my throat. I had waited 10 years to hear those words, but they didn't bring the relief I thought they would. "I don't know how you can expect me to just forgive you," I said, my voice wavering. "You didn't just believe Adam. You threw me away. You didn't ask for my side of the story. You didn't even try. You just let me walk out of your lives like I was nothing." My mom started crying again, but I couldn't stop. The words were spilling out now. "Do you have any idea what that did to me? I had to rebuild my life from nothing. I missed every single moment with this family. You celebrated with Adam. You posted pictures. You carried on like I didn't exist. And now, after all this time, you want to fix things?" My dad looked down at his hands. For the first time in the conversation, he seemed unsure of himself. "You're right," he said quietly. "We failed you, and we can't undo the damage we caused. But we want to try to make things right, if you'll give us the chance." "I don't know if I can," I admitted. "You let me go without a fight, and now you want me back just because Adam confessed?" My mom reached for my hand across the table, her eyes pleading. "Please, Noah, we just want our family to heal." I pulled my hand back, unsure of what to say. I had spent so long longing for this moment, for my family to realize the truth. But now that it was here, I wasn't sure if reconciliation was even possible. The wounds ran too deep. "I need time," I said finally. "I can't just jump back into things like nothing happened." "We understand," my dad said. "Take all the time you need, but we're here. We'll be here whenever you're ready." As I left the cafe, I felt more confused than ever. My family wanted me back, but could I ever truly forgive them? Could I ever trust them again? In the weeks that followed, I kept thinking about the meeting with my parents. It had stirred up so many emotions: anger, sadness, longing. I had expected some sort of closure, but instead I felt more conflicted than ever. They had apologized, yes, but was that enough? Could words erase 10 years of pain, 10 years of feeling like I didn't exist to the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally? The thought of seeing Adam again still made my stomach churn. His betrayal had cut the deepest. It wasn't just a lie he had told out of jealousy, it was a lie that destroyed my life. How do you forgive someone who has taken everything from you and never even seemed to care until now? I continued to ignore his texts and calls. He kept reaching out, apologizing, saying he wanted to talk, but I couldn't bring myself to respond. Every time I saw his name on my phone, the anger would bubble up inside me again. How could he live with that lie for so long? How could he have watched me be disowned, abandoned, and never once felt compelled to confess. I couldn't wrap my head around it. During this time, I went back to therapy. My therapist had been a lifeline through all the trauma I had endured, and now, with my family trying to reconnect, I felt like I needed her more than ever. She reminded me that it was okay to feel conflicted, that it was normal to have mixed emotions after such a huge betrayal. But she also told me that forgiveness wasn't something I had to rush into. It had to happen on my terms, if it happened at all. We talked a lot about boundaries, how I needed to protect myself, how I couldn't just jump back into a relationship with my family without setting limits. As much as I missed having them in my life, I couldn't ignore the fact that they had abandoned me so easily. Trust wasn't something that could be rebuilt overnight. Meanwhile, my parents continued to reach out. They sent texts almost daily, asking how I was, telling me they loved me and missed me. My mom even sent pictures of family events I had missed over the years, weddings, birthday parties, holiday gatherings. I understood why she did it. She was trying to show me what I had been missing, trying to lure me back into the family fold. But each picture just reminded me of the years I had lost, the family I had been cut off from, the milestones I had missed. It hurt to see those images, to know that they had carried on without me like I had never existed. After several more weeks of silence on my end, I finally decided to call my parents again. I didn't know what I wanted to say, but the weight of everything was becoming too much to carry alone. I needed to talk to them, even if I wasn't sure what the outcome would be. When my mom answered, her voice was shaky with emotion. "Noah, I'm so glad you called," she said, her relief palpable. "I've been thinking a lot," I began, trying to keep my voice steady. "I don't know how to move forward with this. I don't know how to trust you again." "We understand," my dad said quietly. "We hurt you in a way that's hard to come back from. We're not asking for you to forgive us right away. But we're here, and we're willing to do whatever it takes to rebuild things." I sighed, unsure of how to respond. Part of me wanted to believe them, to let them back into my life, but another part of me still felt that sting of betrayal. "I want to believe you," I admitted, "but it's hard. I've spent so long feeling like I didn't matter to you, and now that Adam's finally confessed, it's like you want to pick up where we left off. But I can't just forget everything that's happened." "We know," my mom said softly. "And we're not expecting that. We just want to start over, slowly. We want to be a part of your life again, in whatever way you're comfortable with." The problem was, I didn't know what I was comfortable with. I wanted my family back, but I wasn't sure if I could handle the emotional toll of reopening those old wounds. What if I let them back in, and they hurt me again? "I need more time," I said finally. "I'm not ready to fully reconnect yet. I need to figure this out." "We'll wait," my dad said. "However long it takes, we'll wait." Days turned into weeks, and I still couldn't bring myself to face Adam. The thought of sitting down with him, of hearing him try to explain away the lie that had destroyed my life, filled me with rage. What could he possibly say that would make things right? What could he offer me that would undo the 10 years I had lost? But eventually I knew I had to face him. I couldn't avoid it forever. If I ever wanted to move forward, I had to confront the person who had done this to me. So I told my parents I was ready. I agreed to meet Adam, but only if it was on my terms. No public setting, no big family reunion. Just the two of us in a neutral place where we could talk without distractions. The day of the meeting, I felt nauseous. I hadn't seen Adam in 10 years. The last time we spoke was the night he accused me, the night my life fell apart. Now I was going to face him again, and I didn't know what to expect. We met at a park near my apartment. It was quiet, with only a few people walking their dogs or jogging along the path. Adam was already there when I arrived, sitting on a bench, staring out at the lake. He looked older, more tired than I remembered. As I approached, he stood up, his hands shoved into his pockets, looking nervous. "Noah," he said quietly, almost as if he didn't believe I was really standing in front of him. I didn't say anything at first. I just looked at him, trying to process the fact that this was the same person who had ruined my life. "I don't even know where to start," Adam said after a long silence. "I've thought about this moment for years. I know there's nothing I can say to make up for what I did, but I need you to know how sorry I am. I crossed my arms, my anger simmering just below the surface. Sorry? I repeated. You're sorry? Adam, you lied about something that destroyed my life. You watched as I lost everything, our family, my reputation, my sense of self, and you're just sorry? He flinched at my words, but I didn't stop. Do you have any idea what it was like for me, to be disowned by my own parents, to be cut off from everything I knew, all because of your jealousy? How do you even justify that? I can't, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I was wrong, Noah, I know that. I was jealous, and I let it get the best of me. I wanted to hurt you, and I did. I've been carrying that guilt for years, and I don't expect you to forgive me. But I need you to know that I'm trying to change. I've been in therapy. I've been working on myself. I'm not the same person I was back then. His words hung in the air between us, but they didn't ease the anger in my chest. You got to live your life, I said, while I had to start over from nothing. You stayed in the family's good graces. You got to enjoy every holiday, every birthday, while I was left with nothing. Adam nodded, tears welling up in his eyes. You're right. I can't change what I did, but I want to make things right. I know it's not enough, but I'm asking for a chance to try. I looked away, unable to meet his gaze any longer. I didn't know what to do with his apology. Part of me wanted to believe he had changed, that he was genuinely sorry. But the other part of me, the part that had lived with the consequences of his actions for a decade, couldn't just let go of the anger. I don't know if I can ever forgive you, I said finally, my voice barely audible. You took everything from me, Adam, and I don't know if an apology will ever be enough. He didn't argue. He didn't try to defend himself. He just nodded, tears streaming down his face. I understand, he whispered, and I'll wait. As long as it takes, I'll wait. After meeting Adam, I walked home feeling emotionally drained, like I had just relived 10 years of heartache in a single afternoon. I had hoped that facing him, hearing his apology, would somehow provide me with closure. But instead, it left me feeling more confused than ever. How could I move forward after everything that had happened? Adam had confessed, and my parents had apologized, but the weight of what I had lost still hung over me like a dark cloud. The next few days were a blur of sleepless nights and endless thoughts. I replayed the conversation with Adam over and over in my head, trying to make sense of his words, trying to reconcile the brother I used to know with the person who had destroyed my life. I thought about his tears, his promises of change, his plea for forgiveness. But more than that, I thought about my life without him. The 10 years of estrangement, the pain I'd carried on my own for so long. Forgiveness had always seemed like something people talked about, something you were supposed to do to heal. But now that the chance was in front of me, it felt like an impossibility. How could I forgive someone who had deliberately ruined my life out of jealousy? How could I ever trust my family again after they had abandoned me so easily? Weeks passed, and I continued to wrestle with these questions. My parents were still reaching out regularly, sending messages and calling to check in, trying to rebuild a relationship they had severed so abruptly a decade ago. I had responded to a few of their texts, brief conversations that never seemed to go anywhere. I still wasn't ready to meet them face to face again, not after what my dad had confessed about having doubts but choosing to stay silent. As for Adam, he didn't push. After our meeting, he sent a few more texts, short, remorseful messages, before he finally seemed to understand that I needed space. He said he would wait for me to reach out if and when I was ready. But I didn't know if I ever would be. One day, during another therapy session, my therapist asked me a question that shook me to my core. What would forgiveness mean to you, Noah? Not for them, but for you. I sat there staring at the floor, unable to answer. What would it mean for me? Up until that point, I had only thought of forgiveness as something I had to give to others, an obligation, a way to make peace with the people who had hurt me. But I had never considered what it might mean for me. I don't know, I admitted. I don't even know if I can forgive them. I don't think I'm ready. That's okay, she said gently. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or excusing what they did. It doesn't even mean letting them back into your life if that's not what you want. Forgiveness is about you, about freeing yourself from the pain you've been carrying. Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. I had been carrying the weight of this betrayal for so long that I didn't know who I was without it. It had become a part of me, something I couldn't let go of because it had defined my life for the past 10 years. But what if I didn't have to forgive them right away? What if I didn't have to make a decision about reconciliation today, or tomorrow, or even next year? What if I could just be? Could I live my life without this constant burden of having to forgive or forget? In the weeks that followed, I started to think more about my life outside of my family. For so long, my focus had been on what I had lost, on the people who had betrayed me and the relationships I had missed out on. But I had built a life for myself in those 10 years. I had friends, a career, and even a new sense of independence. It wasn't the life I had envisioned, but it was mine. And it was something I had created from the ashes of my past. Slowly, I began to distance myself from the idea that forgiveness had to happen right away, if at all. My therapist had reminded me that setting boundaries was crucial, and I realized that I needed to establish some clear boundaries with my family if I were ever to heal, even if that meant keeping them at a distance for now. One evening, as I sat in my apartment, I made a decision. I wasn't going to rush into forgiveness. I wasn't going to force myself to reconnect with my family before I was ready. But I also wasn't going to let the pain of the past define me anymore. I decided to send a message to my parents, letting them know where I stood. I've been thinking a lot about our conversations and everything that's happened. I want you to know that I'm not ready to fully reconnect yet. I need time to heal, and I need space to figure out what I want moving forward. I know you want to rebuild our relationship, and I appreciate that, but I need to take this at my own pace. I'm not closing the door on us, but I'm not ready to open it fully either. I hope you can understand. I hit send, feeling a strange sense of relief. It wasn't the resolution they were hoping for, but it was the one I needed. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed. It was my dad. "We understand, Noah. We'll give you all the time you need. We're just glad to have some kind of contact with you again. Take all the space you need. We'll be here." For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was in control of the situation. I wasn't being pressured to forgive or reconcile. I was allowed to take things at my own speed, to decide what was best for me. As for Adam, I hadn't yet figured out how to approach him. The thought of seeing him again still filled me with anger, but it wasn't as overwhelming as before. Maybe, in time, I could face him again. Maybe I could forgive him. But I wasn't going to rush that decision. I had already lost so much because of his lie, and I wasn't going to lose my sense of self in the process of trying to fix things. For now, I would focus on me, on healing, on living, on moving forward without the weight of the past dragging me down. My family could wait. Forgiveness could wait. What mattered most was that, for the first time in 10 years, I felt free. And that's how my story continues. Not with a sudden reunion or a perfect resolution, but with the slow, deliberate process of healing, of taking back control of my life, one step at a time.